Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into e2open's proxy statement, and believe me, it's not your average boring corporate document. There's a juicy little merger brewing, executive pay under scrutiny, and a battle for board seats. It's like a corporate soap opera, and we're here to spill the tea. Here's the summary. e2open is getting ready for its annual stockholder meeting, but there's a catch. They've agreed to be bought by another company called WiseTech, so things are a little unusual this year. And before we proceed, if you appreciate the way we decode corporate documents, join our Discord server linked in the description. First off, what's a proxy statement? It's basically a document that tells shareholders what's on the agenda for the annual meeting and how they can vote. Think of it as a cheat sheet for corporate democracy. On the agenda, electing directors, voting on executive pay, and ratifying their accounting firm. But here's the kicker, because of the WiseTech merger, some of this might be just for show. The merger is expected to close in the second half of the year, so they're going through the motions until then. Since they are still an independent public company, they have to submit all necessary fillings. What is interesting is the line that says no action will be taken at the annual meeting with respect to the mergers. Time to talk about the people running the show, the board of directors, and in this section let's scroll to director nominees. Every year some directors get re-elected or replaced. This year 3 directors are up for election, Mr. Abel, Dr. Daffron and Miss Harris. Are they qualified? Well, the board thinks so, pointing to their experience in finance, technology and leadership. However, what is more important to see the total picture? Let's scroll up and check the executive compensation. Who are e2open's key players that lead this 500,000 plus enterprises and 18 billion annual transactions company? We have CEO Andrew Apple, CFO Marge Armstrong, Chief Legal Officer Susan Bennett, Chief Commercial Officer Greg Randolph, as well as the Chief Product and Technology Officer Rachit Lohani. It is interesting to see how long has each person been at the helm. We know that Andrew has been an advisor since 2022 and CEO for about a year, while Rachit Lohani joined in December 2024. This tells you the company has seen a number of changes lately. How much are these executives making? Good question, but let's save the deep dive for the key financial figures later. What does it tell about a company's goals when over 50% of the money paid to their CEOs is called pay at risk, meaning it's not guaranteed? One, that they are probably trying to align the interests of the CEO towards that of the shareholders. Second, that there is perhaps a risk the CEO could underperform and that money won't be paid. And finally, third, that the board is aware of such risk of underperformance. Whether it's through the internet, by telephone, by mail, or by attending the annual meeting, it's important that it is done. Cybersecurity, data protection, and human capital management are huge right now. It's good to see that they have a whole committee dedicated to risk management, including things like talent acquisition, development, and a global attrition. Basically, they are thinking of how do they retain workforce. Now let's dive into the juicy stuff, the executive compensation. And for that, let's scroll to the table. How much the board is making, excluding Mr. Apple, who is considered an employee director. Well, directors made a lot, from almost 300,000 to about 500,000. What is really interesting is that most of the money is composed of stock awards instead of hard cash, so the members are aligned with shareholders. Also, more interesting is that some of the directors donated or signed all their money to outside entities, in particular entities controlled and organized by CC Capital. This shows a strong relationship and connection between those people. Also more interesting is that some of the directors donated or signed all their money to outside entities, in particular entities controlled and organized by CC Capital. This shows a strong relationship and connection between those people. Alright, how much skin do the directors and senior officers have in the game? These guidelines are in the ownership requirements table. The chief executive officer needs to have 6 times their annual base salary invested in the company's stock. It also says that the compensation committee has implemented an internal policy regarding the issuance of options to the company's executives in response to new disclosure requirements. But the most interesting part is the merger agreement, kept at the time of the merger. All outstanding e2open options with an exercise price lower than $3.30 per share will be cashed out. Those outstanding above $3.30 are with exercise price or that have performance-based don't get payment. Also, and in relation with the previous, any performance-based restricted amount on the stock unit will be deemed as achieved at 100%. It's like a participation award. And this is great for a few executives that have great benefits, but not necessarily great for common shareholders. If you paid attention to 2025 payout for both short-term incentive compensation program and the performance-based long-term incentives, and the trend is that it's not a case of do as I say, not as I do, but there's more interesting details. The incentives for 2025 are tied to corporate goals such as organic subscription revenue growth and profitability. It seems that the incentives were not achieved and resulted in about 40% payment. You can vote your preference and choice across many channels, internet, phone, or mail, but bear in mind that your preference might mean nothing depending on where all this situation ends. If shareholders don't believe in the merger, this is the only way that is going to influence future action. The role of the compensation consultant is crucial in trying to align interest on the company. I highly recommend reading what's written on it. It's an important part. They're also a comprehensive and very welcome whistleblower policy and reporting system. The audit also checks our compliance and ethics, and those can also be related to anti-slavery policies. One last detail that I found concerning, or at least needs to be noted, in 2 cases shown in the table, there was the release of material non-public information, MPI. With change in awards price, it's a small sum of money and might be just a coincidence. Nevertheless, all personnel needs to avoid even the perception of conflict of interest. Here's a breakdown of those long-term incentive compensation numbers for several executives. Worth noting again that despite the compensation committee recommendation and annual executive compensation review, the stock options and time at the company itself were not related to the performance of the stock. Lastly, some notes about the compensation on the CEO. The compensation report that the CEO has almost 3 million on other compensation, but that's easily explained due to his bonus allocation and stock rewards. Box, this all means that if the company is doing well, executives are rewarded, which would align individual benefit with the benefit of the shareholders. This section describes risk management, which include data privacy, information security, and testing employees with simulated phishing emails. What a time to live it! Director self-evaluation should be more democratic. The board evaluation process happens exclusively with questionnaires with no live individual contact. Finally, there is a note about stock holdings. All of the company's senior officers have met the requirements of the stock ownership guidelines. That's amazing. Finishing, a quick look at pay ratio. What is the range? The CEO takes 70 times the average employees. I think the numbers are pretty manageable. As we arrive at the end, and to the best of my knowledge, the audit also checked compliance within what's called the Modern Slavery Acts. And the audit also includes the review and approval of transactions with related persons. So what's the bottom line about e2open? What I can see is a company with many big shareholders and a shift on the board of directors alignment to shareholders. A strong influence from CC Capital Chinchu and a lot of money thrown all around, especially to welcome Susan Bennett. But it's yet to be seen what happens after the Wisatech acquisition. And let's face it, with a merger looming, regular stockholders may feel like they have limited power to influence things, but that is what makes this interesting. What's your take? Let me know in the comments. If you have enjoyed the video, I invite you to join our Discord with the channel into the description. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.